And away we go. It is another nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com. I'm Chad Brendel. And as always, he's Aaron Smith. This show brought to you by our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com and stop in down in Dayton. Tell them that they need to pump it up, and they'll take 15% off your order. All right, Aaron, we did wide receivers last night, right?
Yes.
Only fitting we answer tonight with defensive backs. I think that's the way that we should play this thing as we get into the nitty-gritty, as we get down towards the end of our preview series. Where do you want to start? You want to start at corner or you want to start at safety?
I want to start at safety.
Okay. One we know is pretty much a guaranteed. Javon Hicks, back for his super senior fifth year. He will be one of the pieces at safety. And I think this is, like, if you're looking at this roster for guys that have that opportunity to raise their stock, right? To take that next level, to potentially play themselves into, that stratosphere of NFL draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
This is the year for Javon Hicks, right?
Sure.
He played early. He got a lot of time. He was the starter for the entirety of his sophomore season when James Wiggins blew out his ACL. And the job was kind of turned over to Javon. He did a great job. He was an all-conference type performer. But way too loud. So I think that's one of those guys. Like, everybody asks, like, who are going to be the draft picks after having 8 guys drafted this year? Well, I think one of the names you start with is definitely Javon Hicks. He's been a ball hawk. He's found a way to get his hands on interceptions. He's recovered fumbles. He's played good special teams. Like, I think that's just one of those guys. If you're looking at guys that step up to lead this defense, Hicks is near the top.
Well, he's just kind of one of those grinders, right? Where he does everything you ask of him. None of it's flashy, but he's generally in line to make a play. And I really think that's all you can ask for.
Well, what is he really? He's a Colerain kid, right? Like,
there is that.
This is who they are. This is what they do. They just grind it out. They make a name for themselves. They have a long career, and they end up becoming leaders. Like, that's just who they are.
So Combs has to love that, right?
Oh, of course. Like, he's coaching corners, not safeties. So.
Oh, well, I understand that, but I mean, he still has to love seeing a Colerain kid reach this kind of level.
Sure. It was funny. We were there was one of the days in spring ball where Goody was there, Dominic Goodman.
Yeah. And
Combs is telling his cornerbacks about, this is greatness. This is what football looks like. And, you had like Justin Harris talking about Wayne and Arquan Bush, talking about the Cleveland area. And then Hicks comes over and he's like, nah, man, Colerain, this is who we are. This is what we do. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean, there's several of the Cardinals on this roster on defense. So
yeah. The other safety spot is going to be really interesting, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think we know that Jacob Dingle is kind of the veteran of this group that's going to get the first crack at it. But I think you have guys like Byron Threats. You have, Armorion Smith, who I thought had a really good spring. You have Isaiah Cox, who is super talented. It's just a matter of time, I think, before the light comes on for him. I just think like that spot is going to be fascinating when we get to camp to see who's had the best summer, who's edging ahead. I mean, obviously you would think Threats played the most as a true freshman, right? so would probably be the leader in the clubhouse. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that second safety spot plays out, because the reality is, I mean, Dingle's still a pretty young guy, right?
Right.
And the other three are redshirt, going to be redshirt freshmen. You're looking at one of those guys is going to be around playing that safety spot for a long time.
Well, and between Byron Threats and Amarian Smith, I think they're the hardest hitters of the bunch. Which one of them likes to hit?
Smith brings the wood.
I was going to say, which one do you think likes to hit more?
Probably Armorian. I mean, they both like to hit. Don't get me wrong. Probably Armorian, if I had to guess. So that's that one's going to be one of the more interesting, things that we talk about as we get to higher ground.
Yeah, even at the spring game, one of the UC staff guys turns around and looks at me and said, "Damn, Amarian Smith can hit." And I'm like, yeah. There may have been an F-bomb somewhere in there too, but I mean,
This shirt's got such a weird collar. I haven't worn it in a long time. It's been in my closet, and it was kind of, one of those in-between days where I couldn't decide between short sleeves and long sleeves. And my daughter had a volleyball tournament, and I came downstairs in a blue shirt. She's like, "Dad, the other team wears blue." So I had to march my happy ass back upstairs, and this is what I grabbed out of the closet, which until I was looking at myself, I didn't realize how awkward the neck fits on this bad boy, but I digress. Let's move to corner. The only thing we really know is that Arquan Bush is going to play one of the starting corner spots.
Correct.
He spent most of camp at the boundary taking over for Ahmad Gardner. If that is the case, one would probably be safe to assume, at least to start the season, that you would see Taj Ward in the nickel in that scenario, right? I mean, he's played a ton of snaps there.
Yeah.
That's kind of, that comfort, like that safety blanket, if you will. I just think like that's the most likely thing we'll see in judging the corners, and then the field spot would be up for grabs. There's still an opportunity, though, for Arquan Bush to play the field spot. There's still an opportunity for Arquan Bush to be back at nickel, where he's been the past 2 seasons, or he could be a boundary, and wherever he is impacts everything, because it changes the dynamic of all of it.
Absolutely. Kind of similar on the other side, where we said the same thing last night about Jaden Thompson.
Yeah, but he's a little bit more of an unknown. I mean, at least Arquan Bush is a known.
There is that. I just meant in the show.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, like because let's say if you do start Arquan at boundary, Taj slots into the nickel. They both played a ton of football for this team. Mm-hmm. So my guess is that's probably the most likely thing we see, like at Arkansas, because you're trying to get as much experience as you can on the field.
Sure.
And then the rest will happen as it happens naturally. If that were the case, the race for that other outside corner spot, I think right now, if it's the field spot, I think right now comes down to potentially, but most likely 3 guys. Todd Bumpus.
Right.
Sammy Anderson to an extent, but I feel like they played him in the nickel a lot through the spring, which kind of surprised me because I thought Sammy and Bumpus would battle out for that spot opposite Arquan. Now maybe that is a situation where long-term, like you might go with Bumpus early, or you might go with Taj Ward early. But down the road, long term, you start to see Sammy gobble up those snaps if his future is at the nickel. But Justin Harris started the spring game.
Yes, he did.
So Bumpus, Justin Harris, and I definitely would not in any way, shape, or form sleep on JQ Hardaway.
He's a dude.
He's a dude. He's got all the tools. He looks the part. He held his own when they gave him a chance to get out there and prove himself.
Yes, he did.
That's kind of the wild card. And maybe it's a wild card that we see unfold like we did Ahmad Gardner, where it doesn't really take hold until the season starts. And then he gets his opportunity and makes a name for himself, and you can't ever take him off the field. I don't know that we're going to see them turn that spot over to a true freshman right out of the gate.
I'd be shocked if he was starting against Arkansas. That said, I think he'll see time against Arkansas.
For sure. I think he's going to be one of those freshmen you see on special teams for sure.
At the very least.
At the very least. I can see him in the cornerback rotation. It's going to be very interesting when we get to higher ground, kind of where he positionally slots. Are they, because there's also a possibility, like if they see him as a boundary corner, that he's going to have to potentially wait his turn. Jaquan Shepard is kind of the incumbent at number 2 boundary corner. He was there behind Sauce. If Arquan wins that job, then he's going to be behind Arquan. So that's kind of fascinating on that front. But you have to imagine some way, shape, or form, JQ is going to be in the mix here. By the time higher ground breaks, we're going to be talking about JQ Hardaway in some way, shape, or form.
Well, and even in the spring game, you did have some guys out. So we saw him lining up with the 2s, but the guys that were out kind of on wide receiver end, shuffled things down to where you're almost lining up against the 3s. So I think I'm more interested to see what he does as a 2 with my own eyeballs at higher ground with lining up against the 2s as opposed to lining up against the 3s.
What do you mean at higher ground? You're driving from Athens?
I'll be at least at a day or two, even post baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think that now?
Well, she's off work. We can make a whole trip of it. Mom's going to be excited. I'm there for a couple of days. Yeah, we can do this for sure.
All right. I'm just, you're not too, like, you probably take the back way to get to higher ground pretty quick, right?
Coming
to get 74 to the Indiana state line from your mom's house?
No, she's in Mainville, so there's not really. 275.
Yeah, that's the back. That's out over the top.
Yeah,
275 to 74.
I don't know that it's quick though.
No, there's probably nothing really all that quick about it. It just is what it is.
Right. But yeah, I think the cornerback room, as opposed to the safety room, is fascinating as far as the battles that we're going to see in higher ground. Because I think that what you see on one day may be completely different than what you see the next day.
Yeah, and you also have to remember, like, especially at corner, that was Kerry Combs getting his first look at things. Like,
right.
That was, let's see what we got.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to go through the rest of the summer now having seen everything on tape, right? Now having an idea of what he's got and what he's working with. And I think that part is going to be fascinating. So
yeah, I don't know that anybody's spot is necessarily safe with the cornerbacks coach change, but you also
Arquan's spot is safe.
Right. I wouldn't expect too much of a shuffle either.
Arquan being a starter is safe. We just don't know where.
There it is.
Right? That's what makes it fun. All right. I don't have a whole lot else. Do you?
No, obviously there are a ton of freshmen coming in that we'll maybe get to see a little bit of as they haven't been at spring ball. They were finishing.
That's I was going to say
school.
that's the other thing that's different from JQ and Sauce. JQ was able
Early
to
enrollee.
get here early and
Mhm.
go through a spring practice, and
Yep.
Sauce did not have that luxury. He was here in the summer and kind of fought from behind the 8-ball a little bit. So he fought his way out from behind the 8-ball, but he kind of started from a difficult spot. So
I think what'll be fun is when we go back after Higher Ground and go back and listen to this conversation in particular to
see how it played out.
Right.
Well, we've hedged our bets because we don't know. Like, that's the one thing you can always guarantee about me. If I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know. Like, if I'm pretty confident in what I think, I'll lay it all out there. But outside of Arquan Bush, I don't really know a whole lot of what to think in terms of corner and how it ultimately ends up, because there's just, if this piece moves here, then that piece moves here, and
It's chess.
Like, it's chess, and only Kerry Combs knows the rules. We're not privy to that yet.
Kind of like Luke at the spring game. So
right. What's the scoring? Don't worry. That's not the score you're looking for. Jedi mind trick.
I saw your Jedi mind trick. Yeah, I got you.
All right, man. That's going to wrap it up. We will see you tomorrow night for the BBP. Ooh, Aaron. Big guest tomorrow night for the BBP.
This should be a fun guest.
Daddy's excited. There's nobody from the last couple of years that I love more than Ryan Royer. And tomorrow night, we get Ryan Royer.
His signature raise the roof.
Yeah. Super excited for that tomorrow night. So, all right. That's the nightcap. He's Aaron Smith. I'm Chad Brendel. Brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken. We'll see you tomorrow night right here on BearcatJournal.com.
Sip!